What on earth is going on with Michael Olise? We're about halfway through August, and the rumours are not going away with reports of Chelsea potentially agreeing personal terms. So we'll be covering that. And also, Jean-Philippe Mateta to Borussia Dortmund, incoming strikers, and more. Let's get started with Palace news. What is going on, people? Welcome to Live Palace News. It's been a while. It has been a while since we've done these. It's been about 2 weeks, but we are finally back to consistent content. As always, I want to thank every single one of you that watches this live and on replay for your support. If you do enjoy the content, let's smash the like button, get over 100 likes once again. Joined by AJ here to discuss quite a few things. There's a lot that's been going on with Palace as we're closing in on the window. It's been a long window, but we're slowly reaching, the final few weeks. So there's a lot going on. There's some signings that we need to make, and also some players that we need to ideally keep. So it's going to be a busy few weeks. But as always, if you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well. AJ, how you doing, man? It's been a few weeks since I spoke to you about
Yeah, man, it's been crazy, man. Yeah, like get updating to this new X, formerly known as Twitter. There's one following, then there's a For You section, then that's got one set of bit of news, then that's got another set of news, then you got an in the know, then you don't have it in the know. It's very confusing. I can't lie. It's very, very confusing. I don't know what's going on. I think at this point I'm just waiting till I see you guys holding shirts, and then I can get a little bit more clarity around it, man. I'm just as bamboozled as everyone else.
You look young, man. You look young. What have you been
Who,
doing?
me? I need a trim. I need a shave.
Skincare routine on point,
mate. It's the gym, mate. It's the gym. It's the running and everything. I've even started running the other day, mate. You get me? We're getting on. We're getting on a bit. Yeah. Plus, Patrick's looking a little bit too fit, so we need to catch up to him.
Literally, I need to catch up as well because my fitness levels, because I've been ill the last 2 weeks, have been absolutely atrocious. But thankfully, I got my voice back, which I didn't really have on Saturday when doing the live match reaction. So I can talk a bit, but yeah, I'm slowly getting it. Hopefully, by the Arsenal game, I'll be 100% fit as well. Because right now, like Olise, I'm out on the training ground doing the easy run-ins, but I'm not 100% fit yet. But here we are. And talking about Olise, let's get started with him. As always, send in your comments. We'll be reading them out throughout the show. Look, there's been a lot that's been going on, AJ. Ever since Wilf has actually left the club, that's when all these Olise rumors have started. And since then, he hasn't slowed down. And Chelsea seemed like the main club that are after him. I know Man City were also rumored to be interested, but it seemed like they have calm down with the approach. And the latest as of today is with Olise. So according to Nizar Kilsala from the Standard Support, he said the following earlier on today. He said that Chelsea are close to agreeing personal terms with Palace forward Michael Olise and hope to secure a deal worth around £45 million for the 21-year-old. And the Sports Zone also added that Chelsea must find a common ground with Palace, who have already declined 2 offers. Now, I want to start off with this, AJ, because the main thing with Olise has been that he has a release clause, but there's also been reports suggesting that it's difficult. It's not as straightforward as £35 million. There's certain people saying that it might be £35 million for Champions League clubs, of course, which Chelsea ain't, because Chelsea haven't. Last season, Chelsea finished below Palace, which is quite incredible. But this £45 million, this whole Olise situation, as it's dragging on, do you think it's a case of the more delayed this whole saga ends up being, the less likely that Palace will end up selling Olise, especially if it's not as clear and obvious as a £35 million release clause?
I think if we're being honest with ourselves, if there was really a £35 million release clause, he would have went already. I think that's very obvious. So clearly, there's no understanding of what it specifically is. Personal terms doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, if somebody phones me up from a rival company and goes, come work for us, we'll give you double your money or whatever, then it's a no-brainer. I'm going to be like, yeah, cool, we'll sort it out. So the personal terms, I'm not really fussed about. Like, you can agree personal terms with almost anybody. The big question mark is the release clause. And the problem is 1 minute it's X, 1 minute it's Y, and nobody seems to understand. So, the thing is, clubs like Manchester City, who I know a lot of fans kind of favour him making a move to, they're linked with wingers that are costing a lot more money and are a lot less proven at the Premier League. So that screams to me that if there is this said release clause, then it's probably a lot higher than people anticipate. Also, I think that there's obviously something in the terms of this Chelsea deal, because Chelsea managed to hijack 2 Liverpool deals like a thief in the night. So they are more than capable of spending money and getting players through the door very rapidly, as we've seen this whole window, if they want to get players. So there obviously seems to be some sort of stumbling block or something not quite transparent, and it's very obvious, not just to us, but obviously to the negotiating clubs. Um, I mean, if Olise is going to leave, I don't think he leaves this summer. I just don't think he does. Like, that's just my personal preference. I said that about Zaha, so I could be wrong. But
Is that due to Wilf leaving? You don't think
I
Palace want to
think
lose Wilf and the likes of Elise, even Gehi and Eze? I think the Wilf thing was a massive situation, him leaving the club, that we don't want to lose like 2 quality players in this window. Do you think that's the case?
I think that's a factor. I think the uproar and the outrage of the fans, myself included, would be quite high. And this is no disrespect to Elise. Obviously, he knows what his ability is and he knows what his ceiling is. But even he's got to be sitting there thinking, like, am I ready to make such a large transitional step? And then the last thing you've got to take into consider is, do I want to be competing with 100 men for like one starting spot in the team? Because as it stands right now, they seem to have 2, 3, maybe even 4 players for every position on that pitch. So is he going to leave Palace, where he's playing week in, week out, and he's a star right now, to go in Chelsea and maybe get, I don't know, 10, 15 games a season? I don't know. Plus, the last derivative factor is he's injured. So we don't know what specifically is going on in terms of his fitness. I know he was jogging out on the pitch today. I know he's back on a treadmill and stuff like that, but actually physically playing on the pitch, 2 different things altogether. So this is one we're just going to have to let drag out, to be honest with you. And I feel like it could even drag out all the way to the deadline day. And then it's going to be a Willie and won't-he business. And then I think once the window's closed, then we'll have a little bit more clarity and understanding, because these things tend to leak after the fact. But it just seems that so much of these alleged in-the-know journalists seem to have very, very, very different ideas and understandings of how this whole alleged deal was working. So nobody seems to know.
Well, the Athletic reported, what was it, last year, that he didn't have a release clause. Then all of a sudden, he does have a release clause. Then afterwards, we find out that it's more complicated than it is. So I don't think anyone really knows about his release clause. But the one thing that I think is clear is that it is not as clear and obvious as a £35 million release clause. There's probably some technicalities about it that we don't know, that not anyone really knows. There's been, as I said, few murmurs about whether that release clause only applies to Champions League clubs. There's been other reports saying that Elise can pick whoever you want. Like, this, it's just confusing. It's confusing all around. But there's one thing that I'll say. 14th of August today. The longer this drags on, the less likely that Elise is going to leave. If Elise was to leave, he would have already left by now at this point. So for me, I'm getting more and more relaxed in a way as the days go by, because it's clear that the release clause isn't as clear and obvious as many people expected. It's clear that Palace do not want to sell in the first place and would take a considerable offer for that to happen. And now we're hearing about £45 million, which I don't think is enough for Michael Olise. And also, I don't think Olise would be hugely upset if he was not to join Chelsea this summer, because at Palace, he's playing week in, week out. As you said, AJ, at Chelsea, there's no guarantees about that happening. And I don't think it would harm his development if he was to stay at Palace for another year, which will convert him into a 70 to 80 million pound player, I believe, because he has got that ceiling. So for me, as we're talking right now here today, I'm getting more and more confident that this is just going to drag on. Personal agreement, I'm not really that fast. At the end of the day, it's the fee. It's the fee. It's about the release clause. And it's not as clear. So for me, I don't think is likely to happen this window. And that's just not based on any information I have, but based on how this has been dragging on, based on the release clause information. So I'm relaxed. I'm relaxed for now. And as it drags on, I think it's less likely for it to happen. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section as well down below. Let me go through some of the comments about Michael Olise sending them through. Do you think he will be leaving this window? I think the injury plays a part to it as well. Maybe Chelsea are not willing to spend as much due to him being injured, which probably helps us in this case as well. Kendi says, this season Palace exists. Excite me with no transfer coming in. And the Palace have who can come in. I don't see Palace doing well against the big teams. Just sell him, says Patrick. It's clearly him and Chelsea being the dirt behind the scenes. Bollock says, I wonder if Mike or his agent even bloody knows. Selling for the right fee, £75 million, please. See, I don't see Olise going for £75 million in this window because one, he's injured right now, and two, Olise had a fantastic season last season, by the way. Like 11 assists, you can't take that away from him for playing for Palace. But I think if he adds one more year, that £75 million is more confirmed if he gets another like 10 or so assists because he's done it 2 years in a row. So look, we'll see. But Chelsea, as much as money that they have, as much as they're spending, I just don't see £75 million. I can see the £45 million, but when you add the 60s to 70s and when you add that Palace don't want to sell, I just don't see it really happening in this window. Anything less, keep him. On some positive news, our win rate this season is 100%. Statistically, that means we are one of the favourites to win the league. AJ, do you agree?
Europe, baby, Europe.
Well, right now we're fifth, I think, or sixth, so we're on European spots.
I'll do this. No, we're above United, so we're fifth. We're fifth. I'm holding on to the hope. I'll do this to myself every year after about 2-3 wins, but it's coming, baby. It's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Tanta says, you also thought Wilf would stay. Yes, I did think that, and I think the Wilf situation, even people that's linked to Palace, I think it's Adam Sells that said it, that on that Sunday or that Saturday, he was literally on the verge of signing for Palace and Galatasaray came in the last minute. So it was something drastic. There was no signs of Wilf really leaving. If he was going to join Fenerbahce, they would have joined. But yeah, you are right. But that Wilf thing came out of the blue, really. No one expected him to go Galatasaray. So it seemed like it just happened all of a sudden and they paid some crazy amount, which I spoke to people in Turkey about that deal. And, there are some that are excited. But I'll be honest, when I went Turkey, when I saw Galatasaray tops, I didn't see one Zaha on top of it. It was more Icardi, which is the big name that people are after. But I think he'll get that rep as he goes on. I'm probably 50-50 at the moment. Whatever happens, this will be his last season. Yeah, I think so as well.
For sure.
Unless we have an excellent season. But look, I'll be happy. Look, honestly, AJ, right now, I'm actually happy. We won our first game. And because it's a fresh start, I'm actually looking forward to the Arsenal game. But these results don't really fuss me. I'm taking the game at a time. Of course, when we face Arsenal, hopefully we'll get a positive result. But, overall, I'm not that fussed about Olise as of this current moment of time. If it happens, it happens. But if you get 45 million, it'll be a bit disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, it is what it is. We'll just have to move on and find someone else. We bought it for £8 million. So, yeah, it was still good business regardless. Now, let's move on to the second bit of news today, and that is on Jean-Philippe Mateta. And is he on the way to Borussia Dortmund? That's a wild question to ask because when you consider how Mateta's been at Palace, but that's according to reports over in Germany suggesting that Palace have put an €8 million price tag on Mateta, and that is according to newspaper Bild. Mateta, Dortmund. I mean, he was in the Bundesliga before. He knows that league well, but I mean that's a bit of shocking. I don't know what Dortmund was smoking yesterday night.
Nah, do you know what? Dortmund have always been renowned of having these pretty outstanding strikers. So, at least in recent years, anyway. I mean, you never know. Imagine Mateta goes there and starts banging like Haaland or something. You just don't know. It's crazy like that.
You're just tripping now. Mateta goes.
Nah. It's late at night, but I'm still awake. I'm still awake. We will be there. We will be there.
Did you just say? Imagine Mateta goes and starts banging like Haaland. You said that.
Look at Solarov. Solarov did it. Hey, different environment. Different environment, mate. You know what I mean?
Imagine
the Geiger press.
Imagine we start talking about Mateta saying that €8 million was a bargain. Imagine.
Oh, could you imagine?
Right now, AJ, €8 million. If it was to happen, look, he's not on Roy's radar. And the bigger picture is when he was at Palace before under Roy. Roy didn't really select him as much then. So he clearly doesn't rate him. Edouard started against Sheffield United as well. If he could get any type of money, whether that's £7 million, €8 million, anything along them figures, and just start fresh, I'll happily take it. But Dortmund, I mean, is that too much? Is that realistic?
You'd be surprised. I mean, he might have the same agent as Chipper Moting. You don't know, man. Like these. They're playing in a system. The thing with Mateta, right, is he is Bambi on ice, but he scores important goals. Like he's just an enigma to me, man. Like 1 minute he just looks completely whatless, and out of nowhere he'll just bang the winner out of nowhere. But logic and and for the club to progress and kind of eventually start making that transition to the next level, if we're being offered money for these kind of bit part players, then we got to kind of make that jump. I mean, at the end of the day, the man said he was going to use us as a stepping stone. If he starts playing Champions League football with Dortmund, then
That's
I guess everybody wins, isn't it? Like, it's very interesting.
How does he get an improvement after what's happened at Palace? Like, he hasn't been awful. As you said, he's scored some big goals.
It's a weird one, isn't he?
I mean, his dreams might come true using Palace as a stepping stone, but it just doesn't feel right. Like, it just like watching this time at Palace and improving and going there. But I think he'll be like a backup striker there rather than a starter.
Yeah, he's not going to start because what's he got? Marlon, he's got Haller, there's a few strikers there. Like, he's not playing week in, week out there. But then it would be the typical thing that, you know, super sub wise for them and the way that they play and the pressing game they've got. I don't know, man. It'd be one of those interesting ones. At the end of the day, if we walk away with £8 million and we invest it in the squad, right, then, you know, I mean, for me, he's a bit of a cult hero personally. It's very strange for him. I mean, the amount of times he's given me some really gracious moments and he's given me some very frustrating moments over the past couple of years. But more power to him. I think everyone wins in that situation. I can't really be mad at it.
Do you see Mateta leaving to join Dortmund then?
For £8 million, Dortmund's got the money to spend. They probably just need a backup striker. I can picture it. It's not the most craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below, whether you can see this happening. Mateta to Dortmund for €8 million, which sounds wild, but I'll be okay with it. I'll be okay.
They got Bellingham money, mate. They got that Bellingham money, mate. Let's talk.
And this actually links because, as I said at the start, we are rumored with a striker that is, you know, that has been on our radar for a while and it's been recently popping up, which we'll be talking about in just a second. But look, Mateta only scores against poorer opposition, but he still scores. You can't hate the guy for doing his job. They can only score against what's in front of you. And he scores some big goals, like
iconic goals, man. It's iconic goals.
He scored against Millwall. I remember that Brighton game he scored under Roy. Leicester, just literally
Wolves as well.
Ago. Yeah, like he scores some big goals. Like Leicester,
he scores iconic goals. You can't take that away from the man. I can't even explain the man.
He's a big
like, you know, like 10 years from now, when my kids say, like, Daddy, tell me about Mateta, I'm gonna be like, well, he's a strange one. I'd rather lose Mateta than Olise.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's one of those strange players that we'll miss when he's gone. I'm telling you, it's a strange one. I just can't really describe it.
Yeah, and people are talking about Che Adams. Don't worry, we're going to talk about Che Adams because there's a report about him potentially joining Palace. Mitch said I'd be 100% up for it. Keep the player happy, offer a wage bill, no downside. Exactly. Well, we heard from literally when the last season ended that he doesn't want to be at Palace. So if he doesn't want to be at Palace, then there's no point in keeping him. Literally, if we can get €8 million, and I don't care who he goes. So I don't care if he goes to AFC Croydon or Dortmund or Monaco or Burnley, as long as we get our money and start fresh, then I'll be all for it. But the flip side of that is you need to replace him. I know we can say he's not good enough for Palace, but you still need to replace him. You can't just have one striker at the club, and that would be Edouard. And one of his potential replacements could be Che Adams, according to reports, and that is that Che Adams is Palace are considering a £10 million offer for Che Adams, who's 27 this week, but remain undecided on their favoured striking target. Adam fits the bill, but Palace will wait to see if they bank a substantial fee for wide forward Michael Olise, who's a target for both Chelsea and Man City. That's according to reports. So it seems like we're interested in Adams, but £10 million depends on if Michael Olise was to leave. So it's not like as concrete. Maybe if Mateta was to leave, that would be a part of it as well, even though the report doesn't suggest that. But Che Adams, £10 million. If we was to lose Mateta and bring him in, would that be a good business? Would that be a step in the right direction?
It's a hard one, man. It doesn't excite me. I mean, he's a Scotland international. He's capable of getting a few Premier League goals here and there, but are we just swapping one dead horse for another on this one? I don't, you know, it doesn't excite me. I think he'd give us a bit of a slightly different. I think he'd just give you the same as Mateta would. Is one particularly better than the other?
No, I think Che Adams is a better player than Mateta.
But what is it about Shea Adams that's the better player?
I just think he offers more to his game than Mateta. I think Mateta, he scored some big goals for us, but there isn't really much about his game. I think Che Adams, he can get on the ball, he can probably dribble better than
I like his physicality, and he's not scared to shoot, and he's definitely confident. Was he not the one that turned around and said he's going to win the Premier League with Southampton or something wild like that? So I'll never forget that one, man. That was very weird. With Southampton, you know, that's ambitious, man. Man, them can't even pull that off on FIFA. But I mean, it's a fresh face. It's something a bit different up front. It might give Eddie something to worry about looking over his shoulder. So, I mean, he's not going to set the team alight. He's not going to set the Premier League alight. He's got the right kind of experience and he's got the right kind of attributes. But Shea Adams, can we do a little bit better than that?
I mean,
I don't know, man.
But who would?
It doesn't excite me.
That's the thing.
I feel like we've let a few options go already. I feel like, you know, Dembele might have been a better option, or, you know, Balogun.
That's a Saudi money that I was talking.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure if we waited on that, if we didn't wait on it, you know what I mean? How much did Rodrigo go for? I know he went to Saudi in the end, but he was only 3 million at the time. The thing is, when you don't move hot, your options run out very, very quickly, and that pool of potential talent gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And as we're getting nearer to the end of the window, I'm starting to kind of get to that desperate reality feel where it's like, oh, okay, it's just a new name. We'll get him through the door anyway. And it almost feels like the club's doing that from a perspective, because none of these players look like they're going to come into our team and set the team alight, or they're going to bring anything different. I think we got it right early in terms of Lerma, and obviously Franco eventually getting him through the door was brilliant. But, you know, there's a lot more players that need to be, you know, bring through the door. And obviously I know we'll talk about that in time and we'll have to see how the window plays out. But I feel like we're just dragging our heels a little bit with some of these signings, because at the end of the day, if we were going to go get Shea Adams, just go get him. Let Mateta leave for 5-6 million or £8 million or whatever. Bring Shea Adams through the door, and we should have had him ready for the game at the start of the season. So obviously if the game wasn't going our way, he should have been able to come out. I think the only player that we couldn't help was Franco, because of obviously his injury situation. Amazing announcement video, by the way, while we're on the subject of him as well, because we didn't really address that as well. One of my favorites ever. But so good that 2 other football clubs copied it, but we move.
You know what? I'll be honest. I couldn't even watch the announcement video. I haven't even watched it yet.
You haven't watched it? Oh,
I haven't watched it.
Turkish TV ain't cutting it, mate. Turkish YouTube ain't cutting it, bro.
I was at a wedding. Even if you see my reaction video to it, like I recorded it off a balcony. Like I was like, you know what? I just have to record it. Let me quickly record a few-minute video on the signing, because I have to. It's a big one. And I still haven't watched the announcement. Like, that's how much I've been like out.
I think there's 2 videos out now. There's a new one where they've done an interview, and bless him. Obviously, I'm guessing his English isn't amazing, but so they've translated it. But I watched that one today. Yeah, I watched that one earlier on today. But the announcement video was clean. It was clean. I respect it. But going back to the sort of Shea Adams thing, it's underwhelming. That's the thing. I mean, it's a different option, and you never know. He might come into our system. He might work with the players that we got more. Ironically, with a player like Olise whipping in those kind of crosses and assists and things like that, actually, he might have a couple goals in him, you know. I mean, them assist numbers could get a bit juicy, because he's physical. He gets in the box. He's not scared to put himself about. He's out here. But I mean, has he even scored more than 4 or 5 goals in a Premier League season?
5 goals, according to chat.
And then before that, he lit up Birmingham in the Championship. I mean, unless we're prepping for the Championship, I don't know, man.
Well, he's a backup striker. Let's say he's a backup striker. I'll take him over Mateta.
I'd take him if Mateta leaves.
I feel like it's an improvement. Even though Mateta scored some big goals, but I feel like Che Adams' game offers more than what Mateta's overall game offers. And talking about the overall game, of course, you want your striker to score, but even we saw it on the weekend with Edouard. The reason why he had a good game, and I've said it many times, I said it in a live match reaction, I said it in the player ratings as well, is because his link-up play, he was involved, his attitude just seemed spot on. And it was for the first time in a long time that I've seen that from Edouard. And that's why the goal topped it, his overall performance. So if Che Adams can do something similar, which we haven't got out of Edouard or Mateta, then I'll take that, because Mateta really, his link-up play and all the other business, apart from scoring the odd, very good goal, a big goal, there isn't much to his game, and I think Che Adams could potentially offer more. But, we'll see. We'll see. It seems like this offer depends on if player A leaves or player B leaves. So it's not as clear, which is quite interesting, because we do need a striker. And as I said, there's not that long left to the window shut. But there's a question from Lewis who's saying, what is going on with Lewis Hall? And according
That's
to
a great question.
Exactly. So according to the latest reports from Alan Nixon, is that Newcastle United are lining up a shock bid to sign Chelsea Lewis Hall in a surprise £30 million raid. And not only that, there's been a few murmurs about Chelsea stalling it because of the Olise deal. So it seems like there's stuff going on behind the scenes, because you would expect Lewis Hall, because when I was in Turkey, I saw like notifications about Lewis Hall basically on the verge of here we go. And here I am. We play Sheffield United. It's still Monday, 14th of August, and it's still not here. And it should only be a loan move. So there are stuff going on behind the scenes clearly, but I don't know what it is. But let's say Chelsea didn't let him go after, us not letting Olise go to Chelsea. That would be a level of pettiness that just sums up Chelsea really in terms of what they're doing. But Lewis Hall, are you a bit worried about that deal? Slowing down, and now Newcastle being interested?
There is another guy. God, I can't even think of his name. Bless him. Who's been doing a lot of reports around Palace, and he's been pretty much bang on social media, and he seems to think that the whole pettiness thing's kind of calmed down a little bit, and allegedly that might actually be wrapped up this week. Fingers crossed, touch wood. I think that's going to get wrapped up very soon. I'm not really worried about that one, to be honest. At the end of the day,
they'll be stupid not to let Lewis Hall go out on loan. He signed a 6-year deal with them.
Well, allegedly he signed and he was ready to go. Then they stalled it. I mean, the thing is, man, it's almost as confusing as the Olise deal, but on their end. Because if he signed this new 6-year deal, and then they're going to go and sell him to Newcastle, then that defeats the purpose altogether, because they've just given him a pay rise for the sake of giving him a pay rise. I reckon he'll be through the door. I feel like the Newcastle thing's a bit of a smoke and mirrors BS.
It came out of nowhere.
It just seems like everything was ready to go, wrapped up. However, it is well documented that Newcastle are looking for a fullback, so you never know. Watch this space. But I feel like they got money to burn. They got money to burn. They got Champions League money too, plus off the books money. But we don't talk about that. But no politics. But yeah, man, I feel like Lewis Hall is going to be wrapped up this week. Put it this way, the person that I've been really following the news quite closely with, if they get it right with Lewis Hall, then I think that's going to be my go-to. So we're going to have to see. Because he's been right so far with everything else. So let's see what happens.
If it does happen, we'll talk about it, as I always say, in more detail. But with Lewis Hall, do you think it's like a Mitchell challenger, or do you think it's more of a left-sided left midfielder, because he can play out wide, not just left back. He can play midfield as well. What type of signing do you think he'll be for Palace if we were to get him? What's the idea behind it? Is it like a Mitchell?
Nah, man, he's a blonde-haired schluck, mate. Don't worry about all that. He's a blonde-haired schluck. Trust me, he's schluck, but just smaller. Schluck without the weights. But in all fairness, I think he can kind of pretty much do it all on the left-hand side. I mean, I saw him last season, and he was brilliant, like, for Chelsea. That's why I was actually quite surprised.
I love him.
I think left back he's competent. I think centre midfield he looks competent. Even attacking wise, he looks very, very confident. And that's the beauty of having a player like that. If we bring him into the team, we could play him in various different positions, and I feel like he would really excel at Palace, probably like a certain other England international midfielder we had a few years ago under a certain Mr. Vieira. So it excites me. I mean, obviously not having the buy-in clauses, it kind of knocks me a bit, because I'm tired of kind of developing Chelsea players for them. But at the end of the day, even my partner said to me, look, man, don't fall in love here. Like, just let him do his thing. Don't get gassed by him. Even if he gets man of the match and bangs hat-tricks, just chill. And that's just the way I'll take it. And for us, it's another number through the door. It's another squad player and gives the manager a few more options, to be fair. That's how I'm looking at it. But I feel like it'll be all right, man.
Yeah, look, I'm in the same wavelength as you in terms of like getting players on loan without an option to buy. I'm tired of it because it's like the same old thing. But at this point, we're leaving it late. We need another body. So, if they don't want to sell him on a permanent deal, if they're giving him a 6-year deal right before they send him out on loan, then, forget about permanent signing. But it gives us that bit of time to actually look for a replacement or look for solutions this upcoming winter season for permanent transfer, which we probably should have done beforehand. But yeah, it's a bit confusing with Palace because we don't actually know how much budget we have. Even Che Adams were talking about potentially signing him if 1 or 2 players leaves, and that's £10 million. So it's all a bit confusing. One day we have money, the next day it's gone. God knows what's happening with our bank transfers. But yeah, let's move on to the next player, the final bit of player. And this is a little throwback. Alex McCarthy. You lot probably wouldn't remember him, the ex-Palace goalkeeper. Everton are considering a move for Southampton's Alex McCarthy. But according to Jack Rosser, Crystal Palace are interested too. McCarthy has 2 years left on his deal, but is one of the highest earners. Therefore, Saints could let him go for free. Come on, man. McCarthy, if Vicente was to leave, we know what McCarthy can offer, but I think that's just like it just feels not boring, but it's just so like lame. Like we know, like McCarthy is it's not that great, but I guess as a backup option, he'll be fine. AJ, how do you feel
like we're
about
just. The thing is, right? I'm really, you guys, especially the guys on the channel, from the conversation we have, know how I feel about Vicente Guaita, and how much of a guy, I've had the privilege of meeting him. And actually, I'm really disappointed in whatever's going on with him. I don't understand it. I don't know if it's agent playing tactics or very out of character. But on going forward, it just seems that we've got this weird thing where, we like to pick goalkeepers out of the England selection. We had Butland for a while. We've obviously got Johnson doing his thing now. We've got McCarthy on the radar. Maybe we'll get him into the England squad as well. You never know. But I'd have him. As long as the fee's not crazy. Or, if we can get him at a reasonable fee and if they, I don't know, man. Southampton aren't really going to be strapped for cash as it stands, to be honest, because they've just sold Ward-Prowse. It looks like Lavia's going through the door, plus the other odd little intricate players that they've sold in between as well. But I wouldn't say no to McCarthy as a backup goalkeeper. I know we've had him before, and I know he didn't really set the world alight, but it's just a little bit more experience because I'm just not sure if Whitworth is quite ready yet. He's not a million miles away, I don't think. I think he showed signs last season, but having 3 competent goalkeepers makes me feel a lot more comfortable going into the season. And if Guaita's gone
in December,
yeah, but in goalkeeper years, man, that's like the new 25. Like, we can still get another 4 or 5 years out at this level. Let's be honest.
It just feels too short term with it. I don't know, but I guess we don't need a long term approach. But I don't know. It just feels just like I feel like the fact that he could leave for free. I think that's the biggest part to it because apparently he's on high wages and Southampton just may let him go just to get rid of him off the books. I feel like that's what makes it realistic. But, Everton are interested as well. So we'll see what happens. But overall, with Vicente, you said it was disappointed. Did you see his tweet before the game? That's weird.
That was very... the whole situation is just so strange.
How can you want out of the club? I don't understand. How can you want out of the club? And then right before a game, you're saying, where am I? Bro, you're the one that does not want to be here. You're asking us.
They're obviously... It's mixed messages. It's mixed messages. There's obviously something amiss somewhere along the lines because Roy is not the kind of person that's going to throw a player under the bus. It's just not his style. Like it's just not who he is. So for him to make such a bold comment and statement, but then you've got Vicente hanging out with the club chefs, showing pictures at the training ground on social media, having his little person with the Palace kit. It's very confusing. Like it's very strange. And then of course that whole situation with the post before the announcement, because obviously when I saw the lineup, naturally what you do on X is you scroll down, you look at a couple of comments, and the first thing I see is Guaita, and I thought it was like a parody account or something like that.
Yeah.
It was only when I saw, I thought it was like some silly parody account or somebody playing some stupid games. When I actually clocked it was actually him, his proper account. Oh, it's strange, man. I don't know why you want to throw all that, love and support we've given over the years. I would love to get some clarity on that one because it's very strange behavior. And, I can't put my finger on it. It's very, very strange behavior.
I think I've got an answer. people saying he signed a new deal. Why is he doing this? There's stuff going on behind the scenes. He signed a new deal in January when he was the number one. He clearly doesn't like the fact that Johnson has been made the number one at Palace, so he wants out. But now it seems like him potentially going and moving, there might be a bit of complication. So he's trying to do this PR spin, saying, "How can I be available?" Trying to act oblivious, trying to act like he didn't ask for a transfer away, and that's why I think he put out that tweet. He's just trying to save his rep. But I don't think anyone is stupid in the fan base to realize that Roy wouldn't come out and say, "Oh, Vicente didn't travel to America," which we know about. And on top of that, Roy said that the reason why he's not at Palace is because he's, refusing to play. We know that Vicente's refused to play. I think he's just trying to damage the invitation just in case he doesn't leave. But it's a stupid thing to do because we're not little kids. We know what's going on. We know that you wanted out of the club. We know that you're not happy about not being number one. And I think it's kind of pathetic in a way because I think he's just ruined his legacy at Palace. He was one of those people, as you said, AJ, you met him as well before. Cool guy, and it seemed like he loved the Palace fans, but it just feels all a bit fake now. Because as soon as Sam Johnson is made number one, he just calls in all this fuss. Sam Johnson earned his spot. Let's not forget this. Sam Johnson has earned his spot. And if Vicente doesn't like the fact that Sam Johnson had to wait, he wasn't moaning, and he earned the spot after he got injured, then that's pathetic. As a professional that's 36 years old, I understand that you might be wanting to play games, but at that age. But then you can't just go and ask for a move away from the club, then later on tweet and act like, "Oh, you haven't been selected and you don't know why you haven't been selected." Come on, let's be real. We all know the situation. You want out. You haven't been able to, leave the club yet. So you're just trying to do this damage limitation. Otherwise, you would have been on the bench. Otherwise, you would have been in the squad as well because it makes no sense for you not to be in the squad. So there's clearly something wrong with his attitude. And if he's going to be a big baby about it, then let him go. Because honestly, that's the last thing that we need. We already have problems going on with players coming and leaving the club and all of that. The last thing that we want is a player acting unprofessional because someone else has took his spot because they've earned it. That's one thing. They've earned it. And if Vicente was on Sam Johnson's position, then I doubt Sam Johnson would be causing a massive fuss about it as well, because that's how the game works. Sam Johnson was waiting.
It's so strange. I just don't understand. Very strange. Like, he's always come across as a, very professional, and I just don't get it. It's just so out of character. It's like he's just gone to this Jekyll and Hyde behavior like over the past month. It's so strange.
Well, I said it to Patrick. Patrick didn't believe me. I said it. I just feel like he just wants out of the club. Because it makes no sense for him not to travel to American tour. Was making up excuses saying, "Oh, maybe he's out injured and all of that." But if Vicente really didn't want out of the club, when all these reports were coming out, you know how Vicente is active on Twitter. He comes out, he speaks to the fans, he rubs your reports, etc. He would have came out. He would have came out on Twitter and said, "No, I want to be an eagle," whatever he puts out with 50 eagle emojis. He would have come out and put a tweet like that. But he didn't do that. And that's because he wanted out. Now he wants to come out on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and act like he's not getting selected and he's all confused. Apparently his agent runs his Twitter, but Vicente, that's been the case apparently from before. That's according to FYP. So yeah, look, for me, it's best to move him on, and I'm just a bit disappointed the fact that it took one. It's a big thing. Yes, he's dropped as number two, but one thing as him being dropped to number two, as to him causing all this fuss and asking to move away from the club. So if he wants to move away from the club, just let him go. Let him go. I don't know why it's signing a new contract. If that was the case, because if Valencia come with a reasonable fee, he'll be so quickly. But I bet they don't have the money, and I'm telling people that the move has to near free or something. Yeah, 100%. Because Vicente wants out, so Valencia wouldn't want to be spending big money on a player that Palace don't really want to keep, clearly, because he's refusing to play, and also on a player that's 36 years old. So Valencia probably want it for a cheap deal, but Palace don't want to lose him for free. I guess that's my prediction. But I'll be surprised if he's a Palace player come the end of this month. And if he's a Palace player, then I think a lot of people will have just changed their opinions on him. So good luck to him trying to figure that one out, because he's the one that ruined his reputation. He's the one that dug his own hole by refusing to travel the squad to America or refusing to play. Now you have to live with it. Unfortunately, you can't have it both ways. You can't act all great with the fans and then 1 second forget about the bigger picture, forget about playing for the club and doing your role. Because Sam Johnson done his role. He wasn't moaning. He wasn't crying. He wasn't saying, "I want to leave the club." So yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. Look, people, there's about 130 of you here. Let's get over 100 likes. As always, it's been a pleasure talking to every single one of you and reading out your comments as well. Thank you to AJ. Now that I'm back and 90% fit, we'll be here with regular content. So if you're new here and haven't already done so, make sure to hit the subscribe button to not miss out on future Palace content. We've got some special guests coming up as well as we lead up to the Arsenal game with previews, with reactions, with Palace news. So there's a lot of Palace stuff coming on the way. That's it from me and AJ. Hopefully we'll catch up with you all tomorrow. Hopefully some bit more positive news. But until then, up the Palace and keep safe, people.